What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Week 17 NFL Power Rankings. Just got a couple bits of housekeeping here before we dive into the rankings. So this is going to be the last week of sort of week-to-week movement in the rankings. We will be back next week with the Power Rankings, but it's going to be looking at the Week 1 rankings and looking at more of a macro approach to the whole season. So just a heads up on that. Also next week, I want to announce right now, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications because I will be doing my playoff predictions, a full prediction show next week. It's one of my favorite things I do every year, so I'm very excited for that. And then as always, please do hit that like button and check out SeatGeek. The next time you're shopping for tickets, whether it's a game or a concert, whatever it may be, you'll get the best prices there. It's the best interface by far. It's where I buy my tickets. Use promo code FranchiseGuy and you will save $20 on your first purchase. So definitely go check that out. All right, into the rankings here. I'm going to move a little more quickly through the bottom 20 teams because we actually have a lot of movement in the top 12, and that's where things really get juicy here. So sorry if I gloss over your team a little bit. I'll do my best. And then also in the bottom 10 here, this is the biggest tier cluster as far as the bottom tier has been concerned all year. I think we're seeing some teams that had playoff hopes heading into the year are definitely much closer now as they're learning to deal with being a bad team, and they're just not playing for a whole lot right now. So there's a lot of teams that were better at the start of the season that I think are much closer to teams that we've had at the bottom all year. So anyway, the Bengals at number 32, they won the Tank Bowl by losing. They're going to get the number 1 overall pick. To me, Zach Taylor has a lot to prove next year with a new quarterback. We'll see if Joe Burrow ends up being better than Andy Dalton. That to me is still up in the air. He probably will be. But yeah, I think Zach Taylor straight up has just done a terrible job with this team in the first year, and he's got a lot to prove next year. And then talk about coaches who have a lot to prove. The Detroit Lions, who still find themselves here at number 31, same thing we've been saying. They just have fallen apart without their quarterback, and their defense continues to struggle with a defensive head coach. So Matt Patricia has got to head into next year as the top coach as far as hot seats are concerned. Then number 30, the Washington Redskins. Number 29, the New York Giants. The flip of a coin determined who ended up at number 29 here with the garbage overtime rules. It was a shootout game. It was very clear that whoever won that coin toss was going to win the game. As for the Redskins, it's a very rudderless organization right now. They're scrappy. They have Terry McLaurin. Like, whatever. Who knows what this team's going to look like for the next 4 years. It's just a tough team to break down. The Giants are a little more predictable. They can move the ball. Daniel Jones can make some really nice plays, but he's good for a turnover or two every week, if not more. And it's, quite frankly, the worst defense in the NFL, bottom 3 for sure. They got a lot of work to do. Number 28, the Jacksonville Jaguars, another team that we just don't know where this team's going to go. They've completely backed themselves into a corner with their cap situation with Nick Foles. Like, whatever. This team is gross. Number 27, the Miami Dolphins. They're going to stay put. They've established a culture here, and they've been playing for nothing all season. But because of that, they've kind of learned who they are, and Brian Flores looks like a potentially good coach for the future. So they're going to have an exciting offseason. Number 26, the Carolina Panthers. And I don't want to completely belabor this point, but I do want to reaffirm it. And, Panthers fans probably are getting to the point of hating me. And I get it. I went head-to-head with Panthers fans all year saying that this defense was overrated, that the pass rush is just not very good, that the secondary is And then on top of all of that, you've got a quarterback situation that's a disaster. Will Grier came out this week, proved that he's not the answer. Kyle Allen is not the answer. I thought heading into the year that there were some serious red flags with Cam Newton over the last couple years. I think his shoulder is completely shot. I don't believe in him as the answer. So not only do they have a lot of gaps on the roster as far as talent's concerned, but you now have a coaching situation that you don't know what's going to happen in a quarterback situation. I see the Panthers as a team that's going to be surprising next year, not in a turn things back around as a team that had playoff hopes this year, as a team that people might buy back into because of maybe some offseason reports on Cam Newton or a new quarterback in there, whatever it may be. But I see the Panthers as a team that's going to fall apart in the next few years and be a team that's like a top 3 or 4 pick next year. Just not looking good for Carolina. The New York Jets, hard team to break down. They can play good one week, play bad the next week. I guess time is only going to tell if the Adam Gase, Sam Darnold era is going to be anything other than what we've seen this year, where it's just constant back and forth and never really reaching their potential. Who knows? Number 24, the Denver Broncos. A competent team. They picked up another win this week. I'm not going to lie to you and tell you that I actually watched the Broncos-Lions game on Sunday. Maybe I'll get to it. I don't know. It's just not a fun team to watch right now. They're just trying to figure out if Drew Lock is the guy. That's really all they're doing right now. The Cleveland Browns are going to stay put here at number 23. They're a competent team. They hung in there with the Ravens, who just completely outmatched them as the game went on. You got to fire Freddie Kitchens. That's my strong stance on this team, but it sounds like they won't. There was more shouting on the sidelines. I just don't think he's an NFL head coach. Number 22, the LA Chargers. It's just not a good football team. Like, are they ever going to get tackles that can play at a replacement level here? Who's their quarterback next year as they head to the big stadium? I don't know. It's a tough team to break down. The talent's obviously there, but they're not a good team. They can't block, and they have a quarterback that can't elude pressure and extend plays that way. Just a terrible match, but yeah, the Chargers are just kind of floating right now. It's not pretty. So now we have that tier gap up, and these are more competent teams. These are teams that are playing for something that can really compete with anybody, or teams that are actually still in the playoff picture. But yeah, it's just a clear cut up above all these other teams we've broken down. So that's going to start with the Oakland Raiders, who are technically not eliminated yet. For all intents and purposes, they're done. Maybe they sneak in, but the best thing you can say about the Raiders right now is I like Coach Gruden. I think they have themselves a top 12 coach, a guy that players buy into and are going to play hard for him. This defense is completely deprived of talent, but they play hard. So that counts for something, but they do need help from the front office this offseason. And on the offensive side of the ball as well, too. They need a number one receiver. They need potentially a new quarterback. So they got some work to do ahead of them. They got room to operate this offseason. So a team that could have some hope for next year. Number 20, the Arizona Cardinals. They've bounced back. They hit a midseason rut, but you have a coach-quarterback combination that you really believe in. And they upset the Seahawks this week. Honestly, didn't surprise me. I think the Seahawks are a team that, like I've been saying for a long time, is a team that can lose to worse teams, but also beat the best teams in the league. Just because of the talent differential isn't that big between the Cardinals and the Seahawks, other than Russell Wilson. So then number 19, the Indianapolis Colts. They're going to climb up a spot. It's a great coach and culture. They come out and just absolutely obliterate the Panthers after getting embarrassed the week before. It's good to see a team that you praise for their ability to be such a good culture to respond like that. So they have a quarterback there that they might be looking to upgrade this offseason, because I think this is a team that has higher hopes for their quarterback play than Jacoby Brissett. But for now, he's the guy. He's fine. Number 18, the Atlanta Falcons. They're going to stay put. They beat the Jags at home this week. They're a competent team, a week removed from beating one of the best teams in the NFL. So they're a team that, depending on what happens this offseason, they could have some hope heading into next year, kind of the reverse situation of what we've talked about with Carolina. I don't know what's going to happen with their coach situation. I don't know if bringing Dan Quinn back is the best answer, but I guess it depends what candidates are available and who you can bring in. It's a tough decision to make there in Atlanta. Then the Tampa Bay Bucs, and I've kind of flirted with the idea of buying into this team depending how their offseason goes, but then very quickly, they played well against the Texans for a while. Then very quickly, the turnovers kept stacking up, and it's like, all right, that's why you don't really buy all into the Bucs. That said, they were without their top two wide receivers. It's been an explosive offense, maybe in year two of the Arians system here, and with a defense that has made some plays this year, and they've got a young defense there. Could be a team that we're buying into next year, but I'll just kind of float them there at number 17. Number 16, the Chicago Bears. Again, the defense can't do everything for this team. Trubisky has returned to bad after looking pretty good for a few weeks there. It's a team that needs to find a new quarterback and not lean on their defense so much, but it's still a tough team. Number 15, the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're just a slightly better version of the Chicago Bears. Actually, I don't even know if that's fully true. They're just the AFC version of the Chicago Bears. I mean, if the Bears were in the AFC, they'd probably be fighting for a playoff spot too. But Yeah, they're just not a good team. They don't have a quarterback. Duck Hodges is fun. He's better than Mason Rudolph, which I think Rudolph was so bad that Steelers fans got really optimistic just to see a guy that can throw the ball downfield with somewhat confidence. But he's a backup kind of guy, maybe even a guy that should be a third string. So I don't want to watch Duck Hodges in the playoffs. If the Ravens sit everyone in Week 17 and the Steelers win, we might have to. I have them in this tier gap of really non-playoff teams. Just because they get in a bad AFC at 8-8 doesn't really mean they're a playoff caliber team to me. It's one of the worst offenses in the league, period, and they just lost to the Jets. Number 14, the LA Rams. Showed a lot of fight this week. I do want to defend them a little bit. You know, I made a video about them about 10, 12 weeks ago that they're really in a tough situation for the next few years, that they're going to hit a big hole with their salary cap and that this team is going to have a really hard time sustaining success. And I think that narrative has fully caught up as far as public perception of this team. But now I've started to hear like, oh God, the Rams are going to suck so bad next year. No. This team's not going to suck. Jared Goff actually made a lot of plays in this game. McVay had a great game plan. Goff does have one elite trait, and that is his arm. Like, he can make really good throws on the move. Now, it's all in, like, schemed stuff. It's not like he's extending plays with his feet. He's just being designed to roll out. But he's got a great arm and can make all the throws. So, like, he's fine as a quarterback. He's a starting guy, and then they have a ton of elite talent. But the depth of this team is going to get picked apart just constantly for the next year or two. Like, I don't know how they retain guys like Corey Littleton, for example, given their salary situation. So they're in a tough spot, but they're going to be a competitive team for years to come. So I want to defend them a little bit. I think they're going to contend for, 8 to 10 win seasons for the next couple of years. But I just don't know if they're going to have that high floor because the roster is going to be really hard to build. So they've got some tough team building challenges ahead of them. But I'm going to defend them just a little bit because I think that the talk's been down on them quite a bit. Moving on, the Dallas Cowboys, they're going to drop down a couple spots outside of a tier here. They're going to hold on to Jason Garrett because technically if they win and the Eagles lose, they can get in, but it's just been underwhelming. I tweeted out that this is probably the most underwhelming roster since the Dream Team Eagles, and Jerry Jones should be pissed. He's done a great job building this roster. Now, he's kind of screwed them a little bit by staying too loyal with Zeke. That's going to present some tough team building challenges for the future. But as far as this year is concerned, this was a Super Bowl caliber roster that's going to be an 8-win team and miss the playoffs, most likely. So Garrett's got to go. Dak's contract situation is becoming more and more interesting. He's had a very good year, but I don't know if there's a better surrounding core in the league. Yeah, they've had some drops, but you're talking about an elite offensive line, 2 really good running backs, probably the best receiving core, 1 through 3 in the NFL. So it's just an underperforming team. And honestly, shame on Jason Garrett for letting this happen. And a little bit shame on Jerry Jones for standing by Jason Garrett, who's been nothing but a below-average coach for years. Anyway, moving on to the next tier gap here. And this tier are playoff caliber teams. They're very competent teams and teams that maybe I can't picture winning a Super Bowl necessarily, but teams that I could see winning a playoff game, maybe even 2. But yeah, the Tennessee Titans are going to come at the bottom of that tier. I don't even know if they're going to make the playoffs. They're a much better team than the Pittsburgh Steelers to me by the eye test. They hung in there against the Saints, who are just rolling right now. So I don't hold that really against them. They're going to have to play the Texans this week. Probably not even going to make the playoffs. But if they did, they can move the ball offensively, and it's a defense that's a little beat up right now, but they can make some plays on defense. So I like the Titans. And then the Bills, they're going to drop down a spot here. Bills fans won't like that. They played really well against New England, so I want to give them credit for that. And look, I've stood by Josh Allen since the moment they drafted him. I was a Josh Allen guy heading into the draft, and he's been better than a lot of people expected in the NFL. But he's got a lot of flaws. He's a guy that I don't trust to move the ball right now. Now, when I say that, he can make those big splash plays. And he had that throw off his back foot in crunch time against the Patriots that just opens your eyes and says, this guy, just if he could get a little more help and it could click, like, he is every bit as physically talented as the best quarterbacks we've ever watched play. But it's just not all there right now. And he doesn't have a ton of help either. They don't have an explosive running game, and they don't have huge receiving threats outside of John Brown. So obviously they can play defense. It's a competent team. I could see them winning a first-round playoff game. But it's hard to predict that to happen when they have one of the worst offenses in the league. So that's just kind of the Bills' spiel. They're a team that I think is going to continue to build this thing and be more and more legit as they go on. I believe in the people there. It's just they need more talent, I think. Number 10, the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm going to climb up a couple spots here. Look, they're going to get a home playoff game. They're very likely going to beat the Giants this week and host the loser of the Niners-Seahawks game. And if you're the Niners or you're the Seahawks, are you really excited about going to Philadelphia right now for a playoff game? I'm not. They have still one of the best D-lines in the NFL. They got a secondary that's playing much better. I frankly trust this defense that's done it before. And then offensively, it's not a great offense. And Carson Wentz, I think, has been a lot better the last few weeks. And they've, most importantly, figured out an identity. That was the big thing we kept saying about this team, is they kept coming out there first, second down and just were trying different things all the time when they were, those weeks where they were losing to the Dolphins and got destroyed by the Cowboys and all that stuff. But now, they have a short passing game that they can rely on with the tight ends, Miles Sanders, Boston Scott a little bit, and Carson Wentz can always make those splash plays. So I have them in this tier for a reason. I don't see them going on some crazy run and winning a Super Bowl. I just don't know if the offensive ceiling is there, and they are beatable on defense. But it's just a very good football team at this point, and if I'm the Seahawks or the 49ers, I'm just not excited about the idea of having to go there in the first round of the playoffs. So then the Texans at number 9. This is the first time in a few weeks that they're not in that Super Bowl tier. I just wasn't impressed by them against the Bucs. They've too many holes. This defense is just not very good. And offensively, they're really explosive, but they're not necessarily going to be a consistently great offense throughout the course of the playoffs, where they're going to have to win 3 straight games. Maybe in the very back corner of my mind, I could see them just getting hot 3 games in a row and getting to the Super Bowl, but it's really hard to imagine that right now with all the holes on this team. So then number 8, the Minnesota Vikings. Just a depressing loss for them. It didn't make a huge difference for them as far as the standings. They were probably going to be the 6th seed regardless. But just to let Green Bay basically have the ball all game, you did force a few turnovers, but Green Bay, for all intents and purposes, just kind of kicked the Vikings' ass, especially the Packers D-line. Kirk Cousins and the Vikings' offensive line couldn't do anything. Dalvin Cook clearly is how this offense wants to operate. We don't know when they're going to get Dalvin back, so they're still a good team, but they're in this tier for a reason. I can't see this team winning a Super Bowl, especially because they're going to have to do it winning 3 straight road games, and with this offensive line playing like it is, it's just not going to happen, simply put. And then number 7, the Seattle Seahawks, and it's a little bit of an I told you so moment, but I don't want to fully rub it in because the Seahawks can still beat anyone. They're a very unique team. And really what it comes down to, and Seahawks fans have been pissed at me for weeks, and they might be mad at me for this, but when you look at them against a team like the Arizona Cardinals, who pretty objectively have one of the worst rosters in the entire NFL, just outside of the quarterback position, where are they that different? Both teams have terrible offensive lines. Both teams don't have that much of a pass rush, especially with Jadeveon Clowney out, but even with Clowney in there, it doesn't make a huge difference to me. Obviously, the Seahawks have great linebackers, but the secondary, just both teams don't have very good defenses. And then offensively, yeah, you got Tyler Lockett, you got DK Metcalf, but now you're getting injuries with the running backs. It's just not a very good team as a roster. Now, you do have Russell Wilson, you do have Pete Carroll as your coach and a great culture, and you have that it factor about you and that big game swagger, which counts for something. But if the Seahawks beat the Niners and become the 2 seed in the NFC, Green Bay and the Saints, they're going to be licking their chops if that happens, because they would much rather play the Seahawks than the 49ers. I promise you that. So they're still a very good team. Maybe they find a way to get hot for a couple games and get into the Super Bowl, but I just don't think that they're as talented as the other 3 teams in the NFC. So now we have a tier gap up to the top 6, and these are basically, Super Bowl contenders, and some are better than others, but if you believed in any of these 6 teams in this top 6, these are teams that I can truly envision actually winning the Super Bowl, for whatever that's worth. So at the bottom of that tier, I have the New England Patriots, who still struggled on offense again this week, but not to the degree of panic mode from weeks before. I think Tom Brady looked really good this week. He's still got a strong arm and can still be Tom Brady, or at least 80% of Tom Brady, even if he's not what he used to be. But to get N'Keal Harry going, he looks like a playmaker for them. Maybe Edelman can sit the next 2 weeks and then be healthy playoff Julian Edelman, who's one of the best receivers alive. Like, playoff Edelman is nuts. So I think that once playoffs hit, this offense will look a little better. And then defensively, they're nuts. And you got Bill Belichick. So they're absolutely a Super Bowl contender. No doubt about it. They might not be the most talented team out there, but they can get the job done in a scrappy way. So then number 5, the Green Bay Packers. And I think the deal with them is everyone's kind of having a hard time wrapping their minds around the idea that the Packers are kind of like teams like the Patriots, the 49ers, even the Ravens a little bit, where like they're going to run the ball, they're going to play defense, and they're just not the same Packers team we're used to. No, Aaron Rodgers isn't putting the team on his back anymore. But the reality is, yes, this team has holes. They don't have a receiving threat outside of Davante Adams. That's a problem. That could prove to be an issue in the playoffs. They have a very good defense, though. You can make a case that this is the best pass rush in the entire NFL. The numbers would back that up. And yes, they've got Blake Martinez on defense. I don't really trust Kevin King. They've got places you can attack. But here's the deal with the Packers. They're a Seahawks win away from being the 1 seed. They effectively have clinched a first-round bye. And on top of that, they're probably the healthiest team in the NFL right now. And for a team that's been just derailed by injuries year after year, I don't think they're going to complain about having an everything going right for them season. And it just could be a year where things break well for them. So I think they're a little more talented than they get credit for. But also, you got to acknowledge kind of how lucky they're getting with health, with injuries, and how the seeding could play out for them if the Seahawks, who are at home this week, manage to pull off the upset. So that's why I have them in the Super Bowl tier. Then number 4, the New Orleans Saints. They're going to drop down a spot just as the 49ers are. I think these two teams are kind of neck and neck. They're just very well-rounded teams, can really beat you in so many different ways. The only reason they're dropping here is because the Kansas City Chiefs continue to impress me. And we knew the offense was going to get healthy and get on a roll. Like, come on, it's Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, one of the most explosive offenses we've ever seen last year. Like, even if they return to being 50% of what they were last year, they're still going to be one of the best offenses in the NFL. So no worries there, but to see this defense come alive is one of the just hottest, best defenses in the league lately. They're a scary team. They're a really scary team. I think they're neck and neck with the Ravens right now. Excited to kind of break this one down and ultimately make a pick. But yeah, Ravens are going to stay number 1. They continue to roll. Lamar was awesome this week. So those are the power rankings. We're going to head on out. Reminder, hit that like button, and we'll see you guys next week for the power rankings and my prediction show. All right, peace out. We'll see you later.